I'm the comic book hunter, and today we're going to do something a little special. People collect for different reasons. I collect primarily for three reasons. The first reason I collect is for my collection, the OBN collection, which is my exhibits that once the our situation has that we can have bigger whole larger gatherings. I hope to take my exhibit out and show my artifacts that document the Black experience in comic books. So I primarily collect for the collection. Then I collect for myself, things that I like, that I read now, that I, enjoy, and they have a personal appeal to me. And then I also do a little modern book speculating, where I, get some of the modern books and, hold on and see what I can do a little bit later. So I do all three ends of that. So today, what we're going to do, let's take a look into the collection and look at like what I like to call my 12. And if you think about it, with comic books, Black characters really didn't start to appear until 1960s. And the 12 characters that were introduced in from 1961 to 1969 are my 12. And those are the comic books that I hold in high esteem, because they are the ones that set the tone for what goes on now. Because prior to that, most Black people in comic books were not put in a situation where it looked real positive, to say the least. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is look at my comic books, and some of the things that some of these comic books are well out of my price range, but I nevertheless, I do want to identify those. So if you think about it, in 1969, you had the Prowler from Amazing Spider-Man 78. And then we also had, in 1969, you had Man-Ape, which is Makbu, and they called it at that time. And he came in Avengers 62, I believe. Also in 1969, we had introduction of a villain called Dr. Spectrum, which was a evil counterpart to Squadron Supreme's Dr. Spectrum, and he battled the Avengers in Avengers 69. And also in 1969, we had Falcon, who of course comes in Captain America 117, and he's introduced in 69. In 1968, we have a character called Noah Black, or Centurious, who shows up in Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. #2, and he does battle with Nick Fury and Jimmy Woo. And so this is my comic book here for the collection from 1968, and this is Nick Fury, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. #2, and that was in 1968. So also in 1968, we have, indeed from DC, we have Augustus Durant, who was the Mockingbird and in The Secret Six. So this came out in 1968 also. And this is my comic book here that I like. It's an interesting story. So this is 1968. Augustus Durant comes out with The Secret Six. So in 1967, then you get Black Manta comes up in Aquaman 35, and that's another book well out of my range of what I can afford. But it's funny, of course, that yes, he came in 1967, but you didn't know he was a Black guy until several issues later, when they had a couple of years, I think, they revealed that he's really a Black guy. Up to then, he only had his mask on. So yes, he was Black Manta, but we really didn't know he was a Black guy. So that's just an interesting side note. So in 1966, of course, T'Challa comes in Fantastic Four 52, and of course, that's way out of my price range. But I will be getting the King in Black reprint that's going to come on, because for my collection, having these comic books, they don't have to be in the best condition, because they're exhibits, and people come by and look at it and say, oh wow, I didn't know that happened in that year, or I didn't know this was this many characters that were about, because I never experienced it. So it doesn't matter that it's an old comic book or it's a low grade comic book. It's just the experience of the comic book. So it's a reprint of Fantastic Four 52. We'll just send the same message as having one that is the actual copy for the exhibit. So that's why I'm going to be getting some of those. Also in 1966, we have an introduction of Bill Foster, who then becomes Black Goliath. Now, Bill Foster comes about in Avengers 32, and this is in 1966. And he has a couple of panels that he's in here. And what he does is he helps out Hank Pym, because Hank Pym is stuck at 10 feet, and he needs some help on how to figure out how to do this. So Bill Foster was a top chemist for Stark Enterprises, so Tony Stark got him to help Hank Pym come up with the solution, which he did, which of course led him into experiment with the solution, which led him into becoming Black Goliath. But in this comic book, he's just Bill Foster, and he's Bill Foster in a couple other comic books after this. Then he comes Black Goliath. I have that comic book. He first appears as Black Goliath also, but that's another story altogether. So that's what happens in 1966. 1965, Lobo from Dell Comics, which is had 2 issues, was about a cowboy Western comic book that came out. Of course, that's out of my price range also. But so that was in 1965. Okay, in 1963, Gabe Jones, these are my number 1 and 2. Gabe Jones comes along, Gabriel Jones, and he's with the Howling Commandos. Another comic book that I can't afford, but that's all good, because interesting, if we notice, if you look here, you will see that on the first issue, they don't even color him in as a black guy. Okay, and so now, according to something I read somewhere, Stan Lee said that was a problem with from the printer that happened with. But if you go to this first splash page, when you open the comic book, it's indicated, and you'll see that he's a black guy. So it was just on the cover that it was there. I thought that was interesting, of course. But this is 1963, like the year before the Civil Rights Act. There were a lot of, activities going on. So who knows? But I do have a copy here of him and his on the front cover. And so it's a little later than 1963, but it's the best cover with him on it, and Gabriel Blow Your Horn. It was a feature with him. So I love this comic book, and this is an important comic book to me. It's so funny that I look at these little things on the back. Yeah, I used to buy these. I used to get little Roman soldiers. I had the Civil War sets. I had all that for $1.98. Mail in. Wait for it in the mail. So that's my number 2 book, Gabriel Jones. Actually, Derek Root plays him in, I think, Captain America, the first one. So that's part of the Howling Commandos. So my number one book, DC in 1961, there was, Sergeant Rock with Easy Company. And he actually shows up in like Deceased. Batman has him, and then so that was the comic book at the time, because in the 60s it was still a lot of military comic books that were out. So one of the characters that was introduced in 1961 was a guy by the name of Jackie Johnson. I believe he was a crossover between Jack Johnson and Jackie Robinson was kind of supposed to be that kind of amalgamation. So I thought that was interesting, and then so, but it's 1961, and he's introduced in Our Army at War, number 113, and this is my number one ground zero comic book where you have uh, the black guy who was the first, modern, and I would say modern in the sense that it was, not golden age comic books. And it was the foundation of all the comic books that we have now. Those 12 comic books that came in, all the characters that evolved from that, this was their foundation from it. So I appreciate and enjoy this comic book, and I also value it greatly because it is the first black character that is introduced in the major comic books that, starts a positive role model, a positive representation of that black characters. So that was my little touch base on that. Next week we'll get back into a black mystery box opening. I have some eBay box openings. I have some other things that I got for the collections to show. So there's a lot of good stuff coming forward. So I hope that you had a chance to look at my collection and see what my grails are, and appreciate it, and appreciate the history behind it. Have a great day, and as they say, like, comment, share, subscribe, put on the notifications, all that good stuff. Have a great time. This is Coach Tully from the Original Black Nerd Circle, and check out obncollection.org and enjoy.